Welcome. Is this Animal Evac New Zealand?
Yes, it is. Good morning.
Welcome to the Governance and Administration Committee. We have 10 minutes with us. We are now this afternoon. How you choose to use the 10 minutes is over to you, but allowing time for members' questions is very helpful, and you can take your submission as read. The floor is yours, please.
Tēnā koutou. Ko ruhine te manga, ko manawatu te awa, ko tipini Glassey ho, kia ora. Good morning, my name is Steve Glassey and I'm joined today by Theresa Parkin. We are both the co-founders of Animal Evac New Zealand. Animal Evac is New Zealand's only dedicated animal disaster management charity with over 160 highly trained disaster volunteers nationwide. We are here today because we feel that the draft National Disaster Resilience Strategy in its current state fails the animals of Aotearoa, and we hope that you can change that. We can all remember the impact of Hurricane Katrina that struck the US Gulf states in 2005, with over 1,400 people dying in what would become the deadliest, one of the deadliest disasters in US history. 44% of those that chose to stay behind in Hurricane Katrina did so in part because they could not take their pets. The year later, the Pet Emergency and Transportation Standards Act was introduced as federal law to mandate plans, provide funding, and ensure animals were rescued and housed during disasters. They did this because saving animals saves human lives. In 2010, I published a master's research report on animal disaster management in New Zealand that raised or highlighted significant flaws in our animal emergency response arrangements. It was made very clear that the failure to address these flaws would result in animal owners placing themselves in harm's way during disasters. The issues that were raised in that report played out in the Canterbury quakes, the Nelson flood, the Kaikoura quake, the Edgecombe flood, Port Hills fires, and in the past few weeks, the Nelson fires. Simply, our animal disaster arrangements are suboptimal, and we fail to learn from our disasters. In 2017, as the former CEO for Wellington SPCA and founder of the SPCA's National Rescue Unit, I made a comprehensive submission to the Ministerial Inquiry into Civil Defence to raise concerns about the direction or lack of in regarding protecting animals from disasters. Over 10% of all public submissions related to animals, yet the review had dismissed them from all key recommendations. Democracy had failed the animals. Earlier this year, with the support of Gareth Hughes, we presented what is now referred to as one of the most comprehensive reviews on animal disaster law to Parliament. We even had the former head of FEMA, Craig Fugate, present on why animal disaster management reform is so critical to protect also humans in emergencies. The Nelson fires repeated many of the major mistakes made in previous responses. Despite the legal mandate for MPI to coordinate animal emergency plans, there was no animal emergency management approved under the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act in effect at the time of the fire. Our Official Information Act requests also revealed that MPI did not have funding for its own regional animal welfare emergency management coordination function, despite it being mandated under the National Civil Defence Emergency Management Plan order. We have had veiled threats from officials and even a minister that if we continue to draw attention to such deficiencies, our chances of getting funding will be affected. Yet this government repeatedly says it's prepared to be held to account. Today, we have learned that despite being told costs for responding to the Nelson fires would be covered by MPI, MPI are now undecided to whether they will pay our piddly expense claim. This is deja vu, like an Edgecombe. And though central government will reimburse civil defence welfare costs fully, the animal welfare sub-function is excluded. In the US, disaster response costs for animal rescue and sheltering are funded. Our arrangements are simply not world-class. Indeed, last year, government announced TEC funding would be available for civil defence volunteers, would be extended to animal response groups such as ourselves. Within weeks, officials changed the rules, the money went back to the Crown, and groups like ours missed out on funding. Current arrangements failed the community and its animals again. In the Nelson fires, people went back illegally through the cordons to attend to their animals. In the Edgecombe flood, residents did the same, including one who swam across the flooded Rangataiki River to get to her horse because she was turned away at a cordon. These risks were identified to government over 8 years ago. Emergency management plans must be based on likely behaviours, not correct behaviours. We're concerned that the strategy was not consulted sufficiently. Other animal groups have also reported they were never consulted or directly invited to submit. In fact, the Ministry of Civil Defence's own electronic newsletter came out a couple of days after the public consultation period opened and did not even mention it. We are very thankful that the Select Committee has put together the strategy out on their own for a round of public consultation. Otherwise, we would not have the chance to engage and the animals would be failed again for another 10 years. We internationally trade on a reputation for striving for high animal welfare standards, and how we treat animals from day to day to during times of disaster is how we will be judged. I remind you of the story of the 3 cows that were stranded on a landslide island during the Kaikoura quake. The whole world watched. All they wanted to know was what was going to happen to the cows. There was not much interest in the human element. And Kiwis love animals. Voters love animals. And in just a few days, and through a small followership on our Facebook and an $80 post with no media attention, we have rallied to what I understand to be record-breaking public submissions on civil defence strategy consultation. I know this because I used to work at the Ministry of Civil Defence, and I know how much the public generally do not engage, sadly, in processes like this. The response, though, is a barometer of the public opinion and expectation that animals need to be a specific and accountable metric in the National Disaster Resilience Strategy. The strategy calls for accountability and improved public engagement and policy setting. I hope these aspirations are not empty gestures. Officials will tell you that the national plan is up for review and they can address some of the issues then. Good. Then let's make it a low-hanging fruit in the strategy. The strategy needs to reflect what citizens want, not just the views of officials. You all have the opportunity to be remembered as the politicians that created change. Change that will protect our global reputation and save both human and animal lives. This is not about Labour, National, ACT, Greens, New Zealand First, or any other party's agenda. This is about doing the right thing. For every day we fail to reform our animal disaster arrangements, we will continue to put human lives at risk. As our elected representatives, we hope that you will listen to the overwhelming calls for animals to be made a specific and accountable objective in the National Disaster Resilience Strategy for the sake of the animals, the people, and democracy. Thank you.